The mask has come off, and it's now clear what Iran's regional ambitions are in terms of its aggression and pursuit of regional domination, and that has to be answered.
Well, does it? I mean, because the implication of what you're saying is that this conflict, which began between Israel and Hamas in Gaza, should escalate towards an all-out war with Iran. And I suspect that there are many people in the world who don't feel that Israel would be justified in doing that.
No, we certainly don't want a regional conflict, but Israel has been attacked by Iran for every day since October 7th.
Yeah, but so why...
Iran is responsible for...
If Israel successfully defended itself with the backing of allies, including, as you point out, some in the Middle East, why not at this point leave it there?
Well, that is going to be a strategic question the War Cabinet is going to make. I think the dilemma that is going to be on their minds is that if they say, let's draw a line under this, the next time Iran wants to flex its missiles, it will know that firing ballistic missiles at Israeli cities is the new normal, and that is something that is allowed within the rules of the game.
First, I mean, what has the result of these attacks overnight been? I think we know at the moment that one person is injured. I think a little girl is injured. Is that the full extent of this Iranian attack?
Astonishingly, Iran launched 300 ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and UAVs at Israel. There was one casualty, a poor 10-year-old girl who was severely injured from shrapnel, and minor infrastructural damage at an Air Force base in the south. But apart from that, Israel's missile defenses, together with partners, the UK was reportedly part of that response, managed to intercept 99% of those threats. All of the cruise missiles, all of the UAV missiles, all of the UAVs, nearly all of the 120 ballistic missiles. But let's be in no doubt, this was a massive, unprecedented attack from Iranian soil, combined with its proxies. Israel came under fire from Hezbollah, from the Houthis, from the Iraqi militias, and Hamas would have joined in the fighting if Israel hadn't destroyed its missile capabilities in the last 6 months of war.
Let's unpick that a little bit, because, you know, you're talking there about the scale of this attack by Iran and about, you know, how unified it was with partners in the region. But at the same time, of course, it hasn't damaged Israel to a great extent. Some people are saying this was performative by Iran. It was calculated to please a domestic Iranian audience, but not to trigger further escalation within the region. What is your take on that?
I don't think that's a realistic assessment. Performative or symbolic might be 10 missiles, 20. We're talking about 300. We're talking about 120 ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, swarms of UAVs. It is clear that this attack was intended to overwhelm Israel's aerial defenses and to cause significant damage. Now, Israel was able to intercept those together with regional partners. The US gave its support, the UK, France, even Jordan and Saudi Arabia, reportedly, because they all understand that Iran is a threat not just to Israel, it is a threat to the broader Middle East, and that until Iranian aggression is seriously answered, it will continue to go unchecked and to sow more chaos and instability in the Middle East.
So I take from what you've just said there, until Iranian, escalation is checked, then there is still a real risk that Israel is likely to respond. Do you have any idea of what that response will look like?
As you said, the War Cabinet is going to be meeting later today and will have to make a decision. On the one hand, we don't want to see an all-out war and a regional conflict. We are here on the ground. We are the ones who are going to have to suffer the consequences. On the other hand, ballistic missile attacks cannot become the new normal. You know, for 20 years, we were told that we should show restraint when Hamas fires missiles at Tel Aviv, that's something that just happens. A terrorist army in control of neighboring territory fires missiles at your city, and you've just got to suck it up and live with it. We cannot allow that to become the new normal with ballistic missile attacks from Iran. And so Israel is going to have to show deterrence, because otherwise, Iran will find another excuse and do this again, thinking that Israel is simply going to have to show restraint and sit on its hands. And that's why it was so encouraging to see the regional response yesterday, as people understand what we've been saying since the brutal attacks on October 7th, that this isn't Israel against Hamas, Israel against Hezbollah. Iran can't hide behind the proxy armies that it has spent decades funding and arming around the Middle East. The mask has come off. And it's now clear what Iran's regional ambitions are in terms of its aggression and pursuit of regional domination. And that has to be answered.
Well, does it? I mean, because the implication of what you're saying is that this conflict, which began between Israel and Hamas in Gaza, should escalate towards an all-out war with Iran. And I suspect that there are many people in the world who don't feel that Israel would be justified in doing that.
No, we certainly don't want a regional conflict, but Israel has been attacked by Iran for every day since October 7th.
Yeah, but so why...
Iran is responsible for...
If Israel successfully defended itself with the backing of allies, including, as you point out, some in the Middle East, why not at this point leave it there?
Well, that is going to be a strategic question the War Cabinet is going to make. I think the dilemma that is going to be on their minds is that if they say, let's draw a line under this, the next time Iran wants to flex its missiles, it will know that firing ballistic missiles at Israeli cities is the new normal, and that is something that is allowed within the rules of the game. And the international community must be absolutely clear to Iran, in actions as well as words, that firing hundreds of ballistic missiles at Israel is not normal. That's not within the rules of the game. That is naked Iranian aggression.
But
and
you
that
see,
cannot go unchecked.
But the international
War Cabinet has
the international
difficult dilemmas.
The international community has demonstrated that, and there are those, including in governments in Washington and in this country, who think that this is convenient for Bibi Netanyahu to continue a state of war against Iran rather than face up to the political consequences of his actions.
I hear that. I think everyone knows how devastating an all-out regional war would be. Let's remember that since October 7th, Israel hasn't been only at war with Hamas. Hezbollah, another Iranian proxy, joined the war on October 8th. We have tens of thousands of evacuees in the north who can't go home because they're being shelled. We have rockets from the Iranian militias in Yemen. We have rockets from the Iranian militias in Iraq. Iran has been attacking Israel every day since October 7th. And what has changed now is that the response has come directly from Iran. It's pulled the mask off and made clear, look, Iran's goal is to destroy the state of Israel. It's clear about that.
So
it wants to eliminate, wipe us off the map.
Well, what I was going to say, which takes us, because this conversation is obviously around the immediacy of what's happened overnight and the response, but there is a much bigger question about how you resolve what's been happening between Israel and Palestine, and that takes us to the question of a two-state solution. Where is Israel currently on the thinking around a two-state solution? Are you supportive? Is the government supportive of it?
Israel thinks it would be a terrible mistake if the Palestinians look back at the October 7th atrocities, at the families burned alive, at the acts of gang rape, and say, gee, that really pushed our national cause forward. The answer to terrorism must be that terrorism is a setback, that terrorism doesn't pay, not that terrorism pushes you forward. Now, note why Iran is so clear to commandeer the Palestinian cause and make that the central flag of its cause. Because Iran, as the New York Times reported just a few days ago, has been flooding the West Bank with weapons. The West Bank leaves Israel only 9 miles wide at the narrowest. And Iran wants a Palestinian state in order to flood it with more rockets and weapons that would leave Israel absolutely defenseless.
But it still leaves that much bigger question, doesn't it? Because, you know, you may not like it, but ultimately at the heart of this is a question about how to move forward. And there does have to be an answer to that question. And for most people, it is talks on a two-state solution. You seem to be completely ruling that out. So what's the alternative?
Well, Israel sees the core cause of this conflict as being the Palestinian refusal to accept a Jewish state in any borders whatsoever. That is why they use the slogan, from the river to the sea. And that is what, as you've seen on the streets of London, people chanting. When they say from the river to the sea, they don't mean a two-state solution. They mean a Palestinian state instead of Israel, wiping Israel off the map. Now, Israel fears, therefore, that if you were to have a territorial compromise with the Palestinians, while they're still committed to the ultimate vision of from the river to the sea, as the crowds in London are telling them, that's not going to bring forward peace it's going to exacerbate war because it will give them a staging ground in order to launch further attacks against Israel once Israel has restricted to indefensible borders of only 9 miles. So we think that in order to create a pathway towards peace, which is so important, the world must take seriously the task of de-radicalization of Palestinian society to help wean them off the vision of destroying Israel as the core of their national ethos. And I think if the Palestinians as a movement come around to the idea that Israel has a right to exist as a sovereign state, then the sky is the limit in terms of arrangements that can be made for peace between Israel and the Palestinians. But if they continue telling us that they want from the river to the sea, then the demand that Israel give them all the territory between the river and 9 miles away from the sea so they can finish off the job is not realistic.
Eylon Levy, former Israeli government spokesperson, thank you for being with us on the show this morning.